I found a yellow carbon paper ticket in the inside pocket of my winter coat in October. It was the kind of carbon copy ticket dry cleaners use. A 6-digit number printed across the top. A shop name at the bottom that read Beacon Cleaners. The address was on Pressing Avenue in a town 23 miles north of my house. I had never been to that town. I had not worn the coat since the previous spring. I drove to the address out of curiosity on a Saturday morning. The woman at the counter took the ticket, looked at the number, and walked into the back. She came out pushing a rolling clothing rack. 8 men's suits hung on it in clear plastic garment bags. All of them were in my exact size. I do not own a suit. Beacon Cleaners had been on Pressing Avenue for 41 years according to the gold lettering painted on the front window. The building was a single-story brick storefront wedged between a barber shop and a Vietnamese restaurant. The interior smelled of steam and chemical solvent. There was one rotating conveyor of clothing in plastic bags behind the counter. The conveyor held maybe 200 items. A small bell above the door rang when I walked in. The owner introduced herself as Linda. She had run the shop with her husband since the late 1980s. He had passed away the year before, and she had kept the business open by herself. The town itself had a population of about 13,000. I had never driven through it in my life. My job is field installation work for a regional electrical contractor. I wear a uniform shirt and steel-toe boots every day of the year. I have not owned a suit since my wedding 11 years ago. My wife gave that one to Goodwill within a month because the rental had been cheaper than dry cleaning would have been. I do not attend funerals in a suit. I do not have a single garment in my closet that requires dry cleaning. My winter coat is a heavy work jacket from a national hardware chain. The pocket where the ticket had been was barely deep enough to hold a folded receipt. I had not put the ticket there myself. I am certain of that. My wife had not put it there either. We had no children. There was no one else in the house. The suits on the rolling rack were navy and charcoal and one dark gray with a faint windowpane check. 3 of them had matching ties hooked onto the hangers. The plastic bags were labeled with the same ticket number as the one in my hand. Linda asked me which suit I wanted to pick up first. I told her I had not dropped them off. She turned my ticket over and showed me the back. There was a handwritten name on the carbon copy that matched mine. There was a phone number that was my old cell number, the one I had given up 4 years ago. There was an intake date from August of the previous year. Linda told me she remembered me. She said I had been in just last month. She asked if I needed to see the security tape. I drove home with the ticket in my wallet but without the suits. I told myself 3 things on the way back. 1. Someone with my same name had used my old phone number at intake. The number must have been reassigned, and the new holder must look enough like me that Linda had not flagged it. 2. The suits being in my exact size was coincidence. A common size in a small clothing market. 3. The handwriting on the back of the ticket was generic enough that it could match anyone's. I tested each of these out loud while driving. None of them survived the 23 miles back to my driveway. The ticket was still warm in my wallet pocket when I pulled into the garage. I sat in the car for 15 minutes before going inside. I called Beacon Cleaners on Monday morning and asked Linda to look up the full intake history for the ticket number. She read me the dates. The first intake was 12 months ago. 2 suits dropped off. The next was 11 months ago. 2 more. Then 10 months ago. Then 9. The pattern continued in even monthly increments. 24 suits had been dropped off across 11 months. 16 had been picked up. 8 remained on the rack. Each pickup had been signed for in person with the same handwriting that was on the back of my ticket. Linda told me the man who came in to pick them up was tall, brown hair, heavy work jacket from a hardware chain, steel toe boots. He always paid in cash. She had assumed for almost a year that he was me. Linda agreed to let me come in on Saturday and watch the security tape for the most recent pickup. The recording system kept 90 days of footage on a small black box behind the counter. We sat in plastic folding chairs in the back room and watched a Tuesday afternoon in early September. A man walked in carrying a folded yellow ticket. The angle was high and behind. I could see the back of his head, the collar of the same brand of hardware store jacket I owned, and the boot prints he tracked across the linoleum floor. He picked up 2 suits in plastic bags and signed for them at the counter. He left without showing his face to the camera once. The boot prints matched the tread of my own boots. Linda did not say anything when the tape ended. I called my old cell carrier on Wednesday and asked who held the number I had given up 4 years ago. The supervisor told me the number had never been reassigned. It was listed as inactive in their system. I asked her to pull the call history for the past 12 months on the chance the number was still being dialed. She told me there had been 47 outbound calls from that line in the past 12 months. All to beacon cleaners. The carrier could not explain how an inactive line had originated calls. The supervisor put me on hold for 15 minutes and then disconnected. I called back. The number I had dialed was no longer in service. I checked my own phone bill that night. There was no record of my call to the carrier that day. I drove back to Beacon Cleaners on Saturday and asked Linda if I could examine the 8 suits in person. I wanted to check the inside pocket of each one. Linda walked me to the rolling rack at the back of the shop. The plastic bags rustled as I unzipped the first one. Inside the breast pocket of the navy suit was a folded yellow ticket. The ticket was from Beacon Cleaners. The intake date was 3 months in the future. I checked the second suit. Same kind of ticket. 6 months in the future. I checked all 8. The dates ran in order through the next 64 months. Linda was watching me from the counter. She asked me very quietly if everything was all right. I could not feel my hands. I left the suits on the rack. I drove home with the 8 new tickets in my coat pocket. I did not tell my wife. The next month, in November, I checked the inside pocket of the winter coat. There was a new yellow ticket. The intake date was that morning. I had not been to Beacon Cleaners that morning. I drove up anyway. There were 9 suits on the rack now. Linda did not recognize me when I came in. She asked if I had a ticket. I gave it to her. She walked into the back and came out pushing the rolling rack. Tuesdays are pickup days. I have been picking them up. Last week the rack held 41. The new tickets keep appearing in the inside pocket of the coat. The dates on the most recent ones run past the year my wife will die.